thank you, everybody, for coming. This is so exciting to see this turnout. I'm really glad you're here. I'm Teresa Whipple. I'm the publisher of MyEdmondsNews.com. And welcome to the primary election debate for Edmonds mayor. Before I talk about the format and ground rules, I want to sincerely thank the Edmonds Center for the Arts for hosting us here tonight. This is such a beautiful venue, and we're really happy to be here, so thank you, ECA. So we're going to introduce them in alphabetical order. First, City Council Member Christiana Johnson, City Council Member Mike Nelson, Brad Shipley, and City Council Member Neil Tibbet. Thank you very much for being here. Now the candidates can go ahead and take their seats, and we will begin. The person to draw number one on the list of the opening statements was Councilmember Christiana Johnson. So, Ms. Johnson, you can start with your opening statement. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. My name is Christiana Johnson, and I'm running to be your mayor. I'm the hometown candidate. I grew up in Edmonds. My parents built a home here in 1954, and while there have been many, many changes since that time, it's still a wonderful place to live, work, and play. But this is a very important moment in time. This election is going to decide whether Edmonds will be like in the future. Will we preserve what makes Edmonds so special and is called the gem of the Puget Sound? Or are we instead going to have our downtown building heights raised and further degrade our marsh and lose more trees due to development? I'm running for mayor because I want to preserve what makes Edmonds so special. I'm also running to represent our residents and to act in their best interest. I'm a fiscal conservative.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Johnson. Now you got to see how that works.
I didn't see that.
All right, Mr. Nelson, your opening statement, please. You have 1 minute.
Thank you, and I'm very excited to have a nice, small, quaint, intimate conversation with 500 of all of you, as well as those on Facebook Live. I'm running for mayor because I believe we need to lead Edmonds forward. We need new leadership, a mayor who embraces our values and works every day to keep our community safe, healthy, and livable. I look forward to talking to you more about my legislative record and that supports these priorities, as well as future opportunities and challenges that are facing our city. Thank you.
Mr. Tibbet, you have 1 minute.
Well, this is really a fun gathering here, and so it's great to see you all here this evening and so many friends in the room. My name is Neil Tibbet, and I want to thank you for coming tonight to learn about me and the other candidates who are here at the table. I hope you hear some things this evening that help you to make a decision for our next mayor. As a community, we have some serious decisions to make with serious consequences, and I believe that I bring both the qualifications necessary for the job as well as the right disposition to lead our city well. I have a strong track record of bringing people together to create solutions that get the job done. I'm honored to have earned the trust of the people I work with on the boards and commissions, as well as fellow council members. Many of them have endorsed me for mayor and know that I will work hard to maintain the quality and character of our city. I'm looking forward to working with you, and I'm looking forward to working with our council, and I'm looking forward to working with our city staff. After the debates this evening, I will be in the lobby and would love to meet with many of you afterwards. I care deeply about Edmonds.
Thank you, Mr. Tibbet. We're going to be brutal. Mr. Shipley, you have 1 minute.
All right. First, I want to take a few seconds to thank Teresa Whipple, our Citizen of the Year for Edmonds. I'm here under one simple premise: to improve city government by bringing government back to the people. I believe that we're at a very important part of Edmonds' growth, And the decisions that we make today will affect us over the next 5 to 10 years and determine the future of the city. I know everybody in this room loves the city of Edmonds. I know the citizens of the city are extremely talented and passionate. I speak to them every day. I don't want to see special interests determine the outcomes of our city. Whether it's the connector, housing, the maintenance of our streets, we deserve the right to choose our own destiny, our own future, and we have the chance to do it differently. I will tell you right now that it's not going to be a straight path. We may make mistakes along the way, but as long as we're continually trying to improve, we can preserve this place that we call Edmonds for the future generations. I'm Brad Shipley, I'm running for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shipley. Our first question. Now that the Edmonds Waterfront Connector project is dead, do you believe the city needs to develop an alternative plan for emergency waterfront access? If so, please share how the city should go about developing a plan that the public will support. And if not, why not? And the first person to answer that question will be Mr. Nelson. You have 1 minute.
Yes, I believe we should move forward, and I have publicly proposed basically a 4-point plan. I've kind of since then reversed the order, but the first order is we need to have emergency response, something that we can do immediately. We need to work with our fire department, which we have not done in terms of a formal way. They've not been a part of the previous task forces, and want them to say, what can we do to put something on the other side of the tracks now? Do we need to have a lifeguard who's paramedically trained? What can we do right now? And then the second step is to put it forward, looking at the alternatives that are already been studied and consider them with a new task force. Thirdly, I want to make sure we actually try to prevent why we're having some of these blockages, which is suicides, and need to put in measures in place on our tracks to prevent those suicides. And fourthly, we need to make sure that this is something that really the citizens of Edmonds have a say in and have input in from the very beginning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tibbet, you have 1 minute.
After we changed the direction of the connector, I realized almost immediately that we need to look at new options for getting across the railroad tracks in the event of a closure. And I immediately went to the strategic plan that the task force came up with. And at the very beginning of the plan, there are 6 short-term options that we could already be considering. And one of them is to determine what services are already available on the other side of the tracks. And so I think that's our first step, is to determine what's already available. Secondly, when we were trying to decide what kind of access was needed, I called some of my friends who have operations on the west side of the tracks, and they told me that one of the most important features that is required is some kind of pedestrian access to get people back and forth in the event of a closure. And so I think that will be our second most important strategic step, is to identify a pedestrian way to get people back and forth over the tracks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shipley, you have 1 minute.
Well, yeah, I think the city has a duty to provide emergency services to the other side of the tracks. I think it's important that we provide it. There are 50 other options that were available there. I think first we should focus on short-term solutions that we could provide that are not extremely expensive. I believe that it's something that the city should look into. And as we go forward, we have to do a better job of engaging the public in the process. We have to determine what it is that the public would like to see from the outset, so we don't get to the very end of a project and watch it blow up like it has. So.
Thank you very much. Ms. Johnson, you have 1 minute.
I've been on council for 7 years. That's the time that we've spent studying the pedestrian access and emergency access over from the east to the west side of the tracks. And we worked very hard. The first commission that studied this, task force, came up with a recommendation which was the waterfront connector, and it was unanimously supported by the city council. When the vote was to not allow the mayor to sign any contract with parametrics to move forward, that did a couple of things. First of all, it immediately eliminated $7.2 million from the state, $1.5 million from the port, and it preempted any discussion by the public. It preempted any discussion, continued discussion by the city council. And I would have said, let's look at other alternatives and use the money for that purpose.
Thank you very much. You all did very well. Congratulations. All right, we're on to question 2. Edmonds Lutheran Church and Compass Housing Alliance are partnering to create a low-income housing development on church property. Do you favor this specific project? And if so, how would you as mayor address public safety concerns raised by neighbors living nearby? And we'll start with Mr. Tibbet. You have 1 minute.
Well, the first thing to realize with that particular property is Edmonds Lutherans owned it. They are private property owners. They sold the private property to a developer. And as private property developers, they have the right to develop it within the city codes. And what they've proposed is a multifamily development building that would house people that is consistent with the zoning. And as of yet, we've not seen what they're proposing, what they want to build, but they tell us that they would like to provide some level of housing for people who at a below market rate. And at this point, we don't have a clear idea of what the building would look like or what they intend to do. And I am very interested in looking forward to what the building plans end up being. And as mayor, I would watch to see very carefully how those plans develop.
Okay, just as a follow-up, Mr. Tibbet, and I'll do this with everybody, by the way, I'm not picking out anyone. Are you saying at this point the jury's out on whether or not you support the project?
I am very supportive of the project as it's been, as they've discussed it. Again, it's a multifamily residential unit in a zone that allows that kind of use. And I'm very thankful for the opportunity to see the kinds of services that would go along with the project as they intend it.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Shipley, you also have 1 minute, and let me know if you want me to repeat the question.
So I'm familiar with this project. I've worked with Edmonds Lutheran for some time. I believe their heart is in the right place. They sold the property to Compass Housing after a lot line adjustment. Now, as Tibbet informed us, it is an allowed use, and we don't put a limit on how much you have to make to live within Edmonds. From my understanding, the project is going to have some supportive services for the folks that live there. I think that's important. We do have codes that are for nuisances, so if there are violations, there are codes that we could fall back to make sure that they're in compliance. In terms of the project, I think it's always more humane to house people than to leave them on the street.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Johnson, you have 1 minute.
Yes, I believe that housing is so difficult these days that some of our best examples are partners with the faith community. We've seen several examples in Linwood that have been effective, and I think that the Lutheran Church is very progressive in trying to do this. They have been looking at a unique form of housing called blockables, which are made off-site and then brought to the site and can be stacked up. What's interesting about the Edmonds Lutheran Project is that they are going to provide services with a charitable organization that has a track record in King County. And people are going to be screened to make sure they have no criminal records. But basically, it's an opportunity for people who have a drug or alcohol problem to live there. It's a chance for the poor or immigrants. And so they're trying to reach out to the community in this way.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nelson, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. As council president, I put forward funding to look into homelessness, created a housing a homelessness task force, and with the council support, we did a study and found that we actually have a homeless problem in Edmonds, that we have 230 people without a permanent roof over our head. And of those, over 100 of them are Edmonds children. I think that we need to find ways, particularly with families and children who have no say over the matter, where we can find a safe place for them to live. And if that means that this blockables, which is basically an experiment, it's not been done before, if it works out and it helps them, and I think it's worth trying. At the same time, of course, we need to enforce our health and safety laws to the fullest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just, I'm going to give anybody one more opportunity. If you felt like you didn't answer the part of the question where I asked how you were going to address neighborhood safety concerns, feel free to jump in. Anybody? I think I heard some of you talk about it, but I'm not sure everybody did. Anybody wants to add to that? Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to go to something called the lightning round, and I think I might have forgotten to explain this. This is very short, quick answers to a question. They can't explain their answer. It has to be yes or no or a few words, whatever I tell them to do. So here it is. You ready? If a planned city parking study shows that there is a shortage of parking downtown, would you favor construction of a downtown parking garage, yes or no, Mr. Shipley?
No. No.
Ms. Johnson?
No.
Mr. Nelson?
Can I say underground?
I'll have to get back to you on that. Mr. Nelson? Did I get out of order? If I did, tell me.
No.
Okay. Mr. Tibbet?
I'll say yes.
All right. Thank you very much. We're on to question 3. Name 3 steps you would take to better engage and empower citizens in the process of city government decision-making. Ms. Johnson, you have 1 minute.
Well, first of all, if we're ever going to do a study or a plan, we should invite the citizens to get involved at the very, very beginning, because we cannot do our work without you and your opinions, and we don't want to do all the work and then find out your opinions at the end. Number 2, I think that we need to retrain city staff. We need to have a paradigm shift and make sure that everybody knows the proper way for public information. And third, I think that we should change our city's quarterly online newsletter to a paper newsletter that's sent to every single person so that we know as a community what's going on, and that's what I would do as mayor.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nelson?
Yes. I think we should do primarily 2 things. Number 1, it's very clear today, particularly with the last vote that we talked about on the Waterfront connector, that social media is playing a huge role in our people's lives. You know, we had a petition that was signed by now 15,000 people online. We have never had that round of response in any city project, as I'm aware of, in probably the history of our city. So we need a very robust social media outreach where it's not just informing and engaging on projects, but also listening and answering questions. So it has to be something that's interactive and on multiple different platforms, whether it's in, Facebook, Edmonds Moms or Edmonds Community, as well as we need to also then have a personal touch. We need to have our mayor, and if you elect me, I will, have neighborhood meetings where we're not just doing town halls, but that we're actually coming to you instead of you coming to us, and being out there and listening to you on a regular basis in every neighborhood so that you're not surprised and I'm not surprised. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tibbet?
I think that first of all, we need to be able to ask questions right up front that are scary, and not be afraid to get answers back from the citizens of our city. And sometimes we tend to wait until the end of a project after we've invested a lot of money to find out what really is concerning people. And we need to change that order. We need to be able to ask those scary questions right up front and not be afraid of the answers. I do agree with other comments that have already been made that we need to use multiple platforms and look more at social media. And as mayor, I intend to have 100 listening groups around the city in my first 100 days. And the reason I think that's important is because it's an opportunity for me as mayor to build relationships with people who can speak directly into the situations and the concerns of our city.
Thank you. Mr. Shipley, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, I mean, communications is something that I've been working towards and really involved with and wanting to improve on this for a long time. I'm the one here that has worked inside of City Hall, and I know where we're missing it. Primarily, what I see is that we actually need a centralized communications person. This is something I've been talking about for some time. We need someone that is trained in how to get that information out to the citizens. Secondly, we have to engage the citizens from the outset of a project so they could help define the problem, and we're not coming to them with our solutions and having them pick A, B, C, or D. We need to meet people where they're at, similar to what Mike Nelson said. And I also want us to take some chances. We should do demonstration projects that are low cost and low risk so people could engage with, for example, we have the 4th Avenue Arts Corridor coming up. It's been a really pricey project, but I believe that we could do a demonstration where it costs us much less and we could actually see how people use it and whether we could adjust.
Thank you.
Lisa, can
Yes.
we rebut even if our name isn't mentioned?
Go for it.
Well,
30 seconds.
I'd like to take responsibility for the 4th Avenue corridor. I've been on the committee that reviews all public works projects, and I said, hey, what about the 4th Avenue corridor? And they said, well, this hasn't been a priority for city council. So I gathered the city council and said, yes, this is a priority. And they said it'll take 2 years just to do the background work. It takes a year to design the storm sewer water, and then it takes a year to build it. So the next year, I think we can start building the 4th Avenue corridor.
Can I rebut?
Yes, you may. This is what a debate is like, finally.
So I appreciate that you want to have the storm and utilities and all that stuff done. For less than $100,000, we could go buy pots and plants, and we could create a street that feels like what we ultimately want it to be. It's a low-cost way to start getting there and have people test it and see what they like about it. And this is a great way to engage people from the outset before we go in through 2 years of design that are going to cost us who knows how much. So I think that this is a perfect example of where we could be doing these kind of things, and we should be doing these kind of things.
Boy, I'd like to rebut that.
Okay, you have 30 seconds.
Okay, we've already done the design. Next year, we're going to do the construction. And I was involved in a demonstration project as the interim measure for the 4th Avenue corridor. It's called Illumination of Lights or Trees or something, and it's all those purple lights that are in the ground.
Thank you very much. Any other rebuttals before we move on?
No.
All right. Thank you. Okay, we are on to question number 4. 2 of our city's directors have left, and additional turnover is likely with the change in mayoral leadership. Given our area's competitive job market, explain how you personally would work to recruit and retain key employees. And we will start with Mr. Nelson. You have 1 minute.
Well, I think our biggest asset is our city, and so I would probably give them a tour of our town, of all of the wonderful places, people, our downtown, our Highway 99, just to kind of get a feel for what it is. And I would have them, meet some of our different community groups. And I think, it's something that we just have such wonderful people here that, to me, I don't know if I'd have to really sell us as much as just kind of show, where we are and how to kind of unveil what really makes us special. And it really is our people in this town. And so the more people I can introduce them to, I think the more they'd be excited to want to represent it.
Thank you. Mr. Tibbet, you have 1 minute.
One of the things that I've noticed about our city government is we do have some great staff who really love their jobs and do great work. And I want to continue that. I want to make sure that the people who are serving in our city are serving in the right job where they can use their gifts, their skills, and their abilities for that. I also want to make sure that whoever is serving in those occupations are given permission to innovate in those jobs, that they have they can use their ideas and see them come to life and see those ideas have a positive effect on our city. So I want to reward innovation. And then finally, I think it's really important for our city staff to have opportunities for advancement within the city. We've already seen some city staff move to other occupations in other cities because they were at the top of their, let's say, the rung here in Edmonds, and there was no more room for them to move up. I want to make sure that whoever is working in our city has an opportunity to move up if they desire.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shipley, 1 minute.
Would you mind repeating the question?
Yes, I
Make sure
know I
get it
don't
right.
mind. 2 of our city's directors have left, and additional turnover is likely with the change in mayoral leadership. Given our area's competitive job market, explain how you personally would work to recruit and retain key employees.
Yeah, so Edmonds is competitive already. We pay a wage that is competitive with the rest of the market. We have a city that is beautiful to work in. We have one of the best amenities when you walk out of our city hall to downtown Edmonds. It's a great place to work. What is tough is when we have certain members of council use their position on council to make statements against staff just doing their jobs in the public. I think that there's probably a better forum for that that is not in the public's eye. I know these people that have left personally, and I am very sad to see them go, especially Ms. Height. That's a really hard one to take. So I want to see a better working relationship between council and our staff, and make sure that we all know that we're on the same team trying to accomplish the same things. We might have different ways of getting there.
Thank you very much. Ms. Johnson, you have 1 minute.
Yes, the 2 directors that left for various reasons, and they both said that it was the uncertainty of the new mayor because they had worked under Dave Erling for 8 years. Well, I think that there are opportunities that they took for growth and advancement, so good for them. But we need to recruit new people, and we're going to use our new HR director, and I would work closely with him and recruit across our state through the Association of Washington Cities. And for retain, I think that people are our best asset. We have to acknowledge that, and in a small city with only 200 employees, we have to enrich their lives and their jobs and make it a good place to work. And I would do that as mayor.
Thank you. Lightning round number 2. Yes or no? Do you favor the idea of annexing Esperance into Edmonds? Mr. Tibbet.
Yes.
Mr. Shipley.
That is definitely a maybe, but I will say under the current conditions, no.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
If they want to.
Pretty sure you just broke the rule, but oh well. All right, we'll see what happens on the next one. Question number 5. Some say Edmonds is 2 cities, the Bowl and everywhere else. As mayor, how would you serve the other Edmonds neighborhoods? Mr. Shipley, you have 1 minute.
I live in the other Edmonds that I've heard it called. It's been really frustrating being inside of City Hall and hearing those same words. We deal with different issues, and we need to be engaging neighborhoods on a neighborhood level because that is where the issues matter. Once we get down to the street level, the Republicans and Democrats, they decided to come together around certain things. It's easier to bring consensus from the street level than it is from a city level. I will engage citizens where they're at. I will go into neighborhoods and make sure that I am seeing them, and I'm making sure that everybody feels like they're a part of the city.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Yes, we don't need to have all our meetings in the bracket room. And we don't need to have them above the library. We have other venues around the city, such as Swedish Edmonds Hospital, the Meadowdale Clubhouse. We have schools and churches. And I think that we have to stop having all our meetings in the bracket room and the Edmonds Library. I agree that we need to go where people live, and that'll help unify the city.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
Yes. This is something that, well, I also lived up on Highway 99, so I definitely see the disparities between that and the downtown. You know, I think that one way we need to is just to have district elections. We need to have representation from all different parts of the city, not just one area. And I think the only way you're going to have that is if you have district elections. That's something that under the Voting Rights Act that was passed by the legislature several years ago is going to happen anyway. And I think we as a city should initiate and do that now. And that will one way we can address some of these inequities. But of course, I want us to be, and I want to be out in every part of the community, whether it's in Perrinville or Seaview or Furdale or Highway 99, and going out there and making sure, because when I've been out there and I hear, you know, the roads that are being neglected are not being paved, the sidewalks that are not being, you know, taken care of, and it's clear that people throughout our city that are outside the bowl are not feeling the attention and care that they deserve.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tibbet?
One of the things that I've learned while campaigning for the mayor's office, as I've done meet and greets around the city, the issues that come up in different parts of the city are very different. And not that that's so surprising, but I think it's important for those of us who are in the room to remember that we are a big city, and the issues that we face out in various neighborhoods really are significantly different. And there are ways for us to overlap and understand one another and make sure that those priorities are represented both in our budget and our strategic plans and the overall planning that we do for our cities. One of the things that I've talked about with people that does bring us together are our schools and our parks. People love to utilize those amenities, and as teachers and pupils and families meet together across the city, it's one of the ways that does bring us together.
Thank you.
I'd like to rebut.
30 seconds.
Yes, we did a strategic plan several years ago. It wasn't divided by neighborhoods. It was divided by the whole city. And we may be a city of 42,000, but I think we're still a small town.
Thank you. Question 6. What is Edmonds' #1 public safety concern, and how do you propose to address it? And we will start with Councilmember Johnson.
Well, I've learned a lot about public safety from our police chief, Al Compan. And we all feel like we're safe in our homes until crime occurs. But I think our biggest problem as a city is Highway 99. I'm told that there are more calls to that area than any other place in the town. And there is all kinds of crime. There's prostitution, there's drug use, there are things that I can't even begin to tell you about. But I think until we get to the core of the problem and try and close those no-tell motels and try and clean up 99, we're going to have problems. And I think that when Shoreline cleaned up their street, they just moved the problems to Edmonds.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nelson, you have 1 minute.
Yes, I agree. Highway 99 is an area we need to address. You know, I have done ride-alongs with our police and our firefighters. I have I've been with them when they responded to calls of those who've actually overdosed in hotel rooms. The prostitutions that are happening in the host hotels. When I created, as council president, the opioid task force, I asked the police chief as well as the city attorney to look into ways that we can look into maybe condemning some of those properties and what it would take. The challenge, of course, is it takes a lot of there's laws on the books that you can do that, particularly for drug-related crimes. It requires a lot of resources, a lot of documentations, and right now it's not a priority. But I think it should be, because we know that, as we see in every weekly crime report, most of our crimes are happening there, and so all the resources, police and fire, are going up to Highway 99, which is leaving the rest of our communities vulnerable, and I think that needs to change. And another way we can address that is by actually revitalizing Highway 99 and putting in state and federal resources there to do that, and we have a plan in place. We just need to initiate it.
Thank you. Mr. Tibbet, you have 1 minute.
Well, I agree that a lot of the law enforcement and also first responders are utilizing resources up on Highway 99, and I am absolutely committed to the idea of revitalizing that area. We came up with an area plan that won an award from the Puget Sound Regional Council, and it is an excellent plan. It beautifies the corridor. It brings the new businesses and residential development into the area, and I think that it would go a long way to making that area not only an attraction, but also a place that people want to live and seek out entertainment. I also think that one of the areas that we do need to consider is how to improve traffic safety and pedestrian safety around our city. I hear over and over again about the speed of traffic through some of our neighborhoods. I hear about pedestrians who don't feel safe, and we need to do something about that as well.
Thank you. Mr. Shipley, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, so I think we're in consensus that Highway 99 is probably the epicenter of most of our problems in terms of public safety. I'd like to mention my kids. They get off the bus near there, and they've formed what they call the cleanup crew, where they pick up trash on their way home. And on one hand, I want to encourage that, but on the other hand, I'm a little nervous. We need to make sure that we're moving people off of the street. And it's not always easy, but we need to work with regional partners to work towards that. Highway 99 was a project that I worked on the sub-area plan, and we're starting to see redevelopment. I think once we get redevelopment there and we get people that are paying attention to the street, as you have residences there, I think that our crime rate, or the crime rate down there, will improve. So I want to make sure I'm a full supporter of the police and the fire department for the good work that they do. So.
Thank you. Question number 7. Many say there is a divide in Edmonds between those who believe our city should not change and those who believe we need to plan for change. As mayor, how would you bridge these differences of opinion? We'll start with Councilmember Nelson.
I feel like I get all the easy ones. Yes, I think, yes, we absolutely have it. I think we have a very special place, and we need to prioritize keeping it that way. And I think we have a lot of pressures. We see growth happening all around us. But we also know why people choose Edmonds as opposed to other communities. And so we need to do a better job, I think, of protecting what we love so dear. And I think an example of that is protecting our beaches from future development, protecting our parks from future development, expanding. Because I think when we talk a lot about growth, all we're talking about is housing. We're not talking about all the other infrastructure needs that come with that, all the demands and pulls. And there's a limit to what our city can handle. We are 96% built out. Projected growth of our community is not going to be as great as others. The city of Edmonds will grow by 5,500 over 20 years. City of Linwood will grow by 18,000 by 2024 because they have a light rail station. We do not. So the rapid type of growth that's going to be happening elsewhere, I don't think is going to be as much happening in our community. But we also need to provide options for those who can afford to live here and ways to make it a little more affordable. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tibbet, you have 1 minute.
So the question is change versus no change. And one of the things that I've done over the last couple of years is I've studied population growth that's happening in our area. King County grew at the rate of 20%. Snohomish County grew at 12%. And during the same time period between 2010 and 2018, Edmonds grew at 5%. So it's less than 1% a year. What I'm realizing is that we have effectively been built out for many years, and we are still experiencing some incremental growth. And I think because it has been somewhat slow, and we've done a good job with designing some of our elements, both downtown and with parks and what we're expecting in our new business districts, the kind of growth that we're experiencing and the kind of new stuff that's happening around the city is the kind that we can accommodate. I am very excited about what's happening in some of our new business zones, and I'm very excited about the possibility of designing well-built, well-constructed developments in our area.
Thank you. Mr. Shipley, let me know if you need me to repeat the question.
No, so the question was about growth or no growth, or change or no change. I don't know, we got a lot on growth.
Close enough. Thank you.
It's inevitable Edmonds is going to change. There's nothing that we could do about it. We can't, but we don't have to be scared about change. We have an ability right now to be able to affect the change that we want to see, and that's going to come from a grassroots level. We need to be engaging the citizens right now about what we want the future of Edmonds to look like, instead of it being determined later on for us. There are several thousand units, housing units, being built right now at the edge of Edmonds. And where are they going to want to come? They're going to want to come to Edmonds. Inevitably, that's going to lead to more people in the parks and more traffic on our streets. But it's also going to bring more business for the business owners. I think that we have a chance to affect change, and I think that now is the opportunity to do so.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you have 1 minute.
Yes. I grew up in the Edmonds where there were dirt roads and no sidewalks, and I could ride my horse to the grocery store with my dog not on a leash. So times have changed. And what do I want to keep? I want to keep what keeps Edmonds special. The downtown. I belong to the Historic Preservation Commission. We try to honor our historic homes. I want to preserve the beaches and support the arts. But I also got a degree in urban planning where I specialized in land use and transportation. That's why my first year on council, during the budget season, I authorized a budget so we could study SR 104. And as a result, when growth did occur, we got sidewalks and trees and all the things that go with that. So I believe that we need to continue our efforts on Highway 99. I believe that's where most of the growth will and should occur.
Thank you. Lightning round number 3. And guess what? This is more than one word answer. It's 5 words.
What is it? 5 words.
Describe in 5 words or less the unique quality that makes you the best candidate for mayor of Edmonds. And we will start with Mr. Tibbet.
Well, I'd have to say my very low maintenance haircut is going to save me a lot of time. I also understand.
That really was 4 words.
4 words?
I will give you another try, but I have to give them all 4 more words. So if you guys are all okay with that, we'll...
They're busy writing, so I'll just go ahead.
Okay, 5 words.
5 words. I'm thoughtful, engaged, I listen to people, and I'm ready to go.
Okay, I'm doing the math, and I think you still didn't quite get it, but that's all right. Mr. Shipley?
I have done the work.
And it's okay, you can break the applause rule. That was pretty good. Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
My education, experience, leadership, management, and fiscal.
This is harder than it seems, isn't it?
Yeah,
Mr. Nelson?
Listen, initiative, act on it.
Okay, very good. And to be fair, the people who answered later had an advantage, as you probably all know. They got to think about it. All right, we're on to question number 8. This question is in honor of the beautiful building that we're in, and the question is, Edmonds was designated as the state's first creative district. What is your idea for leveraging this designation to create arts and culture opportunities? And we will start with Mr. Shipley.
Yeah, we live in an amazing city that loves the arts, and you could see it in our sidewalks, you could see it on our streets. I believe that this will be a really good opportunity. I would like to see more chances to actually engage with the artists where they're at, and the 4th Avenue Arts Corridor is a perfect example of where this could occur. I look forward to the future of the Arts Corridor, and I'll be fully supportive.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
I am really proud that Edmonds is the first creative district, and there's a committee now organized, and I think they're trying to figure out how to launch. And when we figure that out, then we'll be eligible for state grants if they are ever given to us. And I think that about 6 years ago, we had an art summit when Mayor Erling was first on as mayor, and we met in this room over several days, and it was really fantastic. And we did a lot of work as a result of that, so maybe it's time for another art summit to launch our creative district.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
Yes, I remember a year or two ago on the City Council, we had some folks present to us a study showing the economic value of the arts. And they hired a consultant, and it showed how economically viable our city was because of this. And I guess I just don't see the arts in that way. I see the arts as something that enriches us, that makes us culturally significant, and that's something we should foster and encourage artists to not only come to visit Edmonds, but to live in Edmonds and to work in Edmonds. And so if there are ways that we can create jobs, opportunities, in our town, whether it's through special permitting or special tax breaks of some kind to encourage those types of businesses to foster the arts, I would support it.
Thank you. Mr. Tibbet?
When I first came through Edmonds, this was over 20 years ago, I drove through the downtown, and I was just wowed by this place. I was so inspired by the downtown and the waterfront and the recreational opportunities. And that inspiration has served our artists in our city for many decades. And we are seeing the example of that not only in our art studios and at our schools and at our art festival. We have inspired artists to express themselves. And I am excited about seeing that happen. One of the things that I am really excited about too in our city are the number of people who volunteer to help out with our art festivals. This is a first-class place for people to come and visit, and the volunteers here, they don't treat people like just out-of-town guests. They treat them special, and they introduce them to the special town that we live in.
May I rebut?
Certainly.
Well, I have to tell you that I'm a closet artist. I'm probably the only one here on the City Council, but clay is my medium. I sculpt and I throw, and there are many of us in Edmonds. We belong to the Sculptures Workshop. We studied at Edmonds Community College. We're forming an LLC. I think that many people in the room are artists, and we just need to get together and have fun.
Thank you. Your idea of rebuttal is really not very challenging, shall we say, but since none of you is really arguing with each other, it works. All right, here we're on to question 9. Many older Edmonds residents in particular are struggling to afford their homes due to increasing property taxes. As mayor, how would you address that burden? And we will start with Ms. Johnson.
Well, I addressed this about a year ago when I heard people from the at the City Council, and I put together, with the help of our administrative assistant, a list of all the ways that seniors can get tax relief. They can get tax relief from the property taxes through the Snohomish County through Snohomish County. You can get tax relief from PUD. There are telephone programs. Basically, every utility provides this opportunity, and it's on the website. And I think that this is a real problem, and I want to work more to solve it and help the citizens that are having struggles. And I think that there are lots of opportunities through Homage, our Snohomish County Senior Services.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
Yes, on the campaign trail, I've talked to a lot of folks who are experiencing this, and I think the big challenge, right, is the rising property taxes, living on fixed incomes, and how do we address that? Right now, unfortunately, the state legislature, in terms of what qualifies someone to be low income or disabled, the amount of money you make, the tax relief that you can get right now, most folks don't qualify. So we need to, if our cost of living is going up, we need to raise the amount of income that folks make in terms of what qualifies so that more people can qualify, because right now we're not seeing that. If the state won't do it, then we need to take steps as a city to do that. One way we have some flexibility is utility rates. So we need to adjust our utility rates to those so that we can help keep them stay here. Another thing we can do, what some cities and counties also do, is offer home repair assistance or credits to help with home repairs. Another option, of course, is right now folks cannot have a mother-in-law unit that's detached. And so can they rent out their place and still stay in their house, or rent out their mother-in-law unit? That's something we should explore. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tibbet?
One of the ways that I've been hearing about the struggle that many seniors, or some seniors, have had in our city is just by hearing the stories of how they try to stretch dollars to cover their costs. And one of the things I'm realizing is that many of the tax relief ideas that are available to them are ones that they don't know about. And so we need, as a city, we can let people know that those are options. I also believe that we need to have more housing options. I have been a proponent for many years of new senior housing developments in our city, and I would like to see that expanded as well. And finally, I am so proud of our senior center and the way that they take care of seniors and offer meals and clothing assistance. Our senior center is one of the most important connecting places in our city.
Thank you. Mr. Shipley?
Yeah, I think, especially being inside City Hall, some of the most heartbreaking stories that I hear are seniors that are calling me and trying to find housing because they're 1 month away from not being able to live where they're currently at. A lot of these folks have lived in their house for a very long time, and like others have said, they have fixed income, and their fixed income doesn't rise with when school taxes or other levies rise. Most of the rises in property taxes recently are not from the city. I mean, the city has limits of what it could raise. We need to do a better job of communicating with our seniors about the options that are available that have already been discussed up here. We need to work with local partners to help find places where they're able to go, increase our housing options. One of the saddest things is, I called income restricted housing for seniors. There's 2 of them here in Edmonds, and they have a 7 to 8 year wait list. So options are scarce.
Thank you very much. All right, we're on to question number 10. The U.S. economy has been strong, but even during good times, our city has many unfunded needs, from street repair to sidewalks to deferred maintenance. What city services would be prioritized, and which ones would be cut during the inevitable economic downturn to come? And we will start with Mr. Nelson.
Keep on getting all the good ones. All right. I think that essential services, police, fire, something that we should obviously always something we cut the last resort. In terms of infrastructure, I think we need to prioritize our sidewalks. We have been neglecting them. Over half of our city streets don't have sidewalks, and that's just something that we need to just do a much better job of doing. More and more of our people are out there walking, our children, our seniors, and they don't have a safe place to walk, and I think that's just unacceptable. Our roads are very expensive, and yeah, we need to have some infrastructure because they're deteriorating as well, particularly a lot of the smaller streets, not the arterials, but you know, when you talk to people, they say they haven't seen a public works vehicle in 16 years. So it's a problem, and so I'm not really talking about cuts, am I? It's something that fundamentally we have to prioritize, you know, people, you know, life, human, and then property last.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tibbet?
Well, there's essential infrastructure pieces that are required by state law, and we know that public safety is absolutely essential, and so we would not cut any of those areas. However, there are some programs that in a downturn are not required quite as much, and we may find some efficiency in being able to either reduce staff in some of those areas or to make use of crossover staff to keep areas functioning that are not quite as necessary in a downturn. As I consider our city and what we had to do in the last downturn, I was very thankful that actually that I wasn't mayor at that time. Those were some really tough decisions that our mayor had to make. And we've put into place reserve policies now that would help us to pay for essential services in the event of a downturn.
Thank you. Mr. Shipley?
Ooh, the City Hall guy. All right. So we are underfunding our streets and our sidewalks. And Nelson, I think it's interesting that you brought it up because you voted against sidewalk crew and voted to reduce the cost of maintenance for our streets. These are key things that we're just kicking down the road. We haven't been maintaining any of those to the fullest extent that we should be. I think these roads are on a 60-year time frame, which is unacceptable. In terms of city government, I think that we could just be more efficient, and we need to look for more efficiencies. Part of this is looking at the processes that we have. I think we need to train some of our staff on how to be more efficient. So we're going to have to get creative on how to reduce costs, and honestly, sadly, it's probably going to be from staff.
I'd like to rebut.
Go for it.
Okay, 30 seconds.
I think context is important, and as one of the three legislators up here who actually can make these decisions, you know, I put forward a hiring freeze across the board on all city staff except for as public safety, because we have been hiring too many staff for too long. The growth has been happening. There's been 32 new people in our city over an 8-year period. And so, you know, unless they're vital for public safety, I decided that I didn't think it makes sense to hire them to fill those something that can wait until a future year. Thank you.
I'd like to rebut.
Okay.
Nelson, you also proposed 2 new police officers that the police officers the campaign didn't even ask for. So when you're talking about staff, I'm curious to why you would propose something that wasn't even asked for. That was $300,000 when you took money out of or wanted to take money out of sidewalk crew and for maintenance of our streets.
I'd like to rebut.
Please do.
For starters, first I talked to the police chief about, I was interested in actually hiring drug enforcement officers because I'm trying to prevent crime, not just respond to crime. And the police chief responded to me that actually it'd be more helpful to have street crime units so that it can address a multiple of issues. And so I put forward the funding of street crime units. He was actually surprised that the council did not agree to fund. He thought maybe we could fund 1 or 2, but that is the reasoning, because sometimes you have to make those tough decisions. And I felt we needed to do a better job on preventing drug-related crimes in our city. Thank you.
I'd like to rebut.
I'd like to rebut too.
Me too.
So Councilmember Teitzel asked the police chief right there, did you ask for these positions? And he said no. So I'm just wondering where this conversation happened.
I'd like to rebut.
Go.
This is getting a he said, she said situation.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up in just a minute. Thank you.
All I can say is I asked for more police officers, so I initiated that, absolutely. The police chief redirected me to an area he felt was more needed, and based on his opinion, I modified my request. But I'm not going to get into whether or not we did or did not have a conversation. We did.
Okay, I think we'll go on to Mr. Tibbet. You have 1 minute.
No,
This is a rebuttal, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got out of order. It's the first time it's happened. We've gotten through 10 questions.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry. We're on to
It's
Ms.
a rebuttal,
Johnson.
it's a clarification. One of the things that.
Oh, you do have a rebuttal.
I do.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
Never
thank
mind.
you.
We're good.
Yeah, and so.
It's okay.
One of the things that happened when I first came on the council, I worked with citizen groups and I worked with Councilmember Johnson about the idea of getting a walkway crew for our city. We worked very diligently to build a case for that. We finally had a pro forma from our city staff and we were able to put it in the budget. The mayor approved it and we were ready to go with a walkway crew after working on it for many years. And this is something that needed to happen. It's something that citizens have been asking for, and we exerted leadership to make sure that that could happen. And at the very last minute, Councilmember Nelson tried to strip it out.
May I rebut?
Yes, you may.
As Council President, I put forward the first budget retreat the city's done, and probably most of what not before the time of our council members have been on, or maybe not. But I put forward a budget retreat, at least in the 4 years that hadn't been done, I've been on there, and we put forward our ideas as city council members, but we never saw what the mayor was going to do. So in October, I assumed he was going to fund public safety adequately. He did not. He didn't offer to meet with me, and I never got to see the budget until it was too late. And so at that point, which is the duty of our council to pass and amend any budget, I was doing what was the responsibility duties. And if it's something that you shouldn't have taken years and years and years to hire 2 people to work on a sidewalks, I don't really understand why it took so long. Thank you.
I think we need to get on to Councilmember Johnson. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that every year at budget time, I meet with the police chief. And during the downturn, I was really disturbed to hear that we had to get rid of our street crimes unit. It took quite a few years, but we got it back. And that unit exists with a supervisor and 2 detectives or lower people. And they had the supervisor, but they didn't have the other 2 people, and they train people, and they self-select what kind of jobs they have, whether they want to be the dog trainer or street crimes unit. So it took quite a few years, but we do have an active street crimes unit now.
And Councilmember Johnson, I just want to make sure, because I've totally lost track. Did you actually get through the question itself the first time, or was that your answer to the original question?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so let me repeat it.
I would need you to repeat it.
You were rebutting, I'm sure, because we've lost track of the rebuttals. But the U.S. economy has been strong, but even during good times, our city has many unfunded needs, from street repair to sidewalks to deferred maintenance, what city services would be prioritized and which ones would be cut during the inevitable economic downturn to come.
Well, as stated before, the revised Code of Washington specifies what cities must do, and that's police, fire, utilities, and streets. These are required. What's not required are parks. We have a wonderful parks program, but we don't need to be building new parks during the recession. We can just offer the recreation side of parks. And we've done a really good job in the past 8 years of upgrading all the equipment, so we don't need to do that. Now, one of the problems we have is that we've had the past 20 years, we only had $56,000 put aside for building maintenance. We have 18 buildings. We have $6.5 million of deferred maintenance. And we had a previous administration that refused to put any money in streets, so we have problems that need to be solved there.
Thank you. Question number 11. As candidate for mayor, you are applying for a job to be the CEO of Edmonds. Explain to those hiring you, which I assume is just about everybody in this audience, the voters, why you are the best candidate. Out of all of the four of you up there, why are you the best candidate? Starting with Mr. Tibbet.
I've been serving in the city of Edmonds in different capacities for at least 15 years. I started on the transportation committee and learned a lot about our transportation and walkway systems. And after that, I was on the planning board. And during that time, I had an opportunity to be the chair of several different high-profile public hearings. And so I learned to listen to citizens, I learned to listen to disagreements, and I learned that it's a very important process to involve citizens at that level. Finally, as a city council member, I had an opportunity to work on the Public Works Committee and learn about the significant public works systems that hold up and are our foundation for our city. And so I have a broad range of experience. In my private sector work, I work in organizational leadership, and I've had a chance to develop employees, to develop teams, and build consensus, and I think that will help as I move into City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shipley, why should the voters hire you for the job of mayor?
I'm going to highlight a story. I'll be quick because we don't have much time. In 2004, I went to Thailand to help rebuild after the 2004 tsunami. And we went there well-meaning and trying to do some good work. The village that we worked in was 10 shed to 10 shed separated by footpaths. Half of the 5,000 people lost their lives or went missing. We did what we thought was right. We moved them away from the hazard, built cinder block homes, and we spread it out over a long street. One night after walking back, I had one of the younger Thai people with me, and we just met older Thai lady just sobbing. So they helped me translate. And basically, she was really upset because now her sister lived a mile and a half away and she had no way to get to her. And from that moment on, it's always stuck in my head that if we're not engaging the community at the outset, that we could have good intent and still wind up with the wrong solution. I will, as your mayor, make sure that we're engaging the folks from the outset so we could create a vision for our future.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Yes, I hope not to bore you. I don't have a story, but I do have a master's degree in urban planning, another in transportation planning, 30 years experience, and I'm a highway corridor planner. I led the transportation planning in King County for growth management. And I'm very knowledgeable about management. I have experience in financial management. I have served on the financial committee and the long-range financial plan for the city. And I think I'm the only council member that's done anything in financing who is here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
Yes, I've been on our city council for 4 years. I've also, I have a law degree from Gonzaga University, undergraduate degree, political science from George Washington University. I've been on the city's planning board, the climate protection committee. But what I have done most of all is I have a legislative record. I have a record of not only listening, but acting. I've worked in listening to our citizens when our marsh was threatened. I met with the head of ecology and Save Our Marsh residents to protect our marsh.
I'd like to read
I've worked with, initiated climate action study, a resolution on 100% renewable energy, accessible parks, resolution to prevent coal trains, ordinances to prevent the lost and stolen firearms, safe storage of firearms, opposed firefighter cuts, emergency condominium ordinance, property tax cuts, hiring freeze, housing reboot, accessible playground, and even an ordinance creating a youth commission for our city. I have listened, I have acted, and I will continue to do so as your mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson, you had a rebuttal?
Well, I was the council president when the city council decided what to do with the the buffers and setbacks for the Edmonds Marsh as part of the Shoreline Master Plan. I just found out this week that Mr. Nelson had this meeting down with the Department of Ecology head. And Mr. Tippett wrote a minority report. There is only one voice for the council, and that's the total council. We don't act as individuals trying to make our points. And I had to send our attorney down to talk with Department of Ecology and make that point, among others, that there was a decision.
Thank you. Any rebuttal? Mr. Nelson? We're good?
I would have something to say.
Okay.
Then I do too.
Yeah, Nilsson has walked around with this inflatable soapbox that he just takes wherever he goes. And it's been unfortunate because you're not engaging the people, you're doing things for yourself, I feel like. That's just my feeling. I feel like you've gone around and you made a display of any time it's been politically advantageous for yourself.
Well, may I rebut? I think if we're talking about political advantageous, I think, I'd like to know why you gave Neil Tippett a $100 campaign contribution to his mayoral campaign and then decide you're going to run for mayor.
Okay. Well, our wives work together. And Neil Tippett, anytime that we've had something going on, he's came to me and asked questions.
So why are you voting for him?
Why am I voting for him?
Why isn't he your, I think he was your friend. You gave him $100.
I don't think I need to respond any more than I have.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. When we work together on the city council, one of the things that we have an opportunity to do is to actually talk with one another about the ideas that we want to bring forward. Many times, and I could cite 6 or 7 very quickly where Mr. Nelson acted on his own, didn't tell us what was happening or when it was going to happen. He just threw it out there. And that is, to me, that is a style of leadership that the city of Edmonds has to decide if they want. My preference would be for us to work together. I have met with staff people. I ask questions with citizens across the city, and I look for ways that we can move projects forward that are good for the city.
I'd like to rebut.
I'd like to rebut.
Okay, Ms. Johnson and then Mr. Nelson.
You're right. We only speak in one voice, and when Mr. Tippett sent his minority report to the Department of Ecology, we seriously considered sanctioning him and his brethren that did so. I was council president. They were newly elected. I gave them a pass, and I brought in a parliamentarian that explained to them that, no, you cannot do that. I never heard an explanation. I never heard an apology. But what they did was wrong.
Mr. Nelson?
I could not have accomplished any of those things without the support and collaboration of our city council, of our city staff, and most importantly, our citizens. Every one of those things was something that was initiated by our citizens. I don't work for my council members or the city staff. I work for all of you out there. And if you want us to do something, if you want us to take action, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to sit on the sidelines and let the mayor or somebody else take the initiative. I'm going to do it, especially when the interests for our city, because that's always what I'm going to put first. Thank you.
Any other, Mr. Tippett?
I'd like to respond. First of all, when 3 of us offered a minority response to the Department of Ecology, I found out later from the department, the director actually, Maya Bella, is that her name? Is that right? Anyway, I talked with her in Olympia, and she appreciated the fact that we responded to the decision that was made. However, after it was all said and done, I realized we didn't need to do that. And so I am sorry, and I admit that that was something that we didn't need to do, and I'm sorry that we did it.
Rebut.
Go.
I'd like to thank you for that apology, and I hope you learned a lesson, and I'm glad we didn't. No. I don't mean that way. I mean, I'm glad that we didn't sanction you, but there are supposed to be no surprises among the city council. We sent that letter 1 week, and before we even, within a week, your rebuttal was sent. You had 2 city council meetings. You could have told us about it. And the mayor sent his own letter, and we prevailed, and I'm glad.
All right. Anything else?
I would like to add a comment.
All right.
One, I want to acknowledge that we're all on the same team. The city, council members, city staff, we should all be working together. And I just want to see us foster a better relationship over time. As mayor, that's something that I would focus on.
All right.
That's it.
Good. Okay, well, here's this is one additional question that I'm going to throw into the mix here, and it actually is your opportunity to ask a question of one other person sitting up there next to you. And so choose wisely, because you just get one. And we will start, let's see, we will start with Mr. Shipley.
Okay. Mr. Nelson, I'll give you a chance to come back, and I want to know why you feel that there's a distinction between the citizens of Edmonds and the city staff and council, and why you would jump over city staff and other members of council and go directly to the citizens without at least including us in part of that process.
Sure. I think there's, we have, 2 main branches of government in our city, the legislative branch and the executive branch. We have a strong mayor form of government, a mayor who has over 200 people who serves them at their pleasure. We have 1 city staff person that 7 of us share. We don't have a lot of resources, and more often than not, the mayor will put forward an agenda that is his priority and may not necessarily be ours. It's a healthy check and balance for us to want to reach out to people, to be receptive to our citizens, and especially to those who elect us.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, do you have a question you'd like to ask somebody else?
I do have a question I'd like to ask of Mr. Tibbet. One of the Democratic platform is marriage equality. I know you're an ordained minister. Would you perform a marriage ceremony for one of your children if they were gay?
That's a fascinating question. So the way I'll answer this question is, from my tradition, I define marriage as between a man and a woman. So that is my tradition, and so in my tradition, those are the weddings that I would perform. However, that does not prevent me from supporting marriage equality. And I support the rights that marriage equality offers, and I believe absolutely that people who love each other and are in a relationship have the opportunity to support one another in that relationship and should have the rights to do that. As a result, if one of my kids wanted to be in a same-sex marriage, I would invite them to be married by someone else. However, I would support them. I would be excited to make sure that they had every right to maintain that relationship.
Thank you.
Mr. Nelson?
Sure, I'll ask Christiana Johnson. What is your least priority?
My least priority.
It's not trying to trip you up. I'm just giving you an answer.
Well, I have to admit that spending our very limited real estate excise tax on parks is my least priority. There was actually a something in the council, the first $750,000 in REIT would be spent on parks, and anything over and above that could be spent on transportation. That was during the lean years, and we never got over $750,000. And during the current administration, they just go 50-50, 50% parks and 50% roads, even though we have a mandate to fix our roads that we didn't fix them for many years, and we have all these missing sidewalks, which is probably our highest priority among citizens. They want to be able to walk safely.
Mr. Tibbet?
Yes, this question is for Mr. Nelson. When you were council president, it was very difficult for us as council members to get hold of you. It was difficult to get return phone calls and returned emails. And I'm curious how you would handle the responsibilities of mayor when with communications, and if you have any ideas that would help us to know how to connect with you.
Well, my cell phone is on the city website. I'm sorry you felt that way. I've tried to, I think most people who know me can get a hold of me. So I'm not sure how to say, except to say that I try to make myself available to most folks, to colleagues, council members, our city staff, and our citizens. And I will continue to do that as your mayor.
Thank you. All right, we are now to the portion of the closing statements, and we are going to start with Ms. Johnson. You have 2 minutes.
Well, I want you all to know how much I love Edmonds. I grew up here, and I really appreciate it. I think that I'm a fiscal conservative. I want to help people, the seniors and the people that need to stay in their homes. And I think we need to work on taxes, the missing middle, and people who want to age in place and stay in Edmonds. I'm the only candidate with financial background on the city council. Served on the council committee, finance committee, and the long-range financing committee. I have a certificate from our organization, Washington Cities Association, in municipal leadership. And bottom line is, I want to work for you. I don't think anyone would work harder, and it would be such an honor and the highlight of my political career to be your mayor. Thank you very much.
Mr. Nelson?
We need to focus on moving Edmonds forward, and that means a safe, healthy, and livable environment for us. And I think we need to have a marsh that's filled with wildlife, not landfill. Salmon that are returning to our streams without students needing to save them. Beaches without bridges, ever. Children and seniors walking on sidewalks, not roadways and ditches. Enough police who can focus on preventing crime, not just responding to it. Homes that fit the character of our neighborhoods, not a concrete village. Seniors and families not priced out. A thriving downtown that remains quaint. You all have a choice this election, and I hope that you ask, when it matters, does this person stand up for you, for your interests? I've stood to protect our community with more police, against cuts to our fire and EMS, stood up for our seniors, for the arts, to protect our downtown, to give youth a voice, to keep guns out of the hands of children. I've stood up time and again to protect our environment, including our marsh, our climate, and our marine sanctuary. If you elect me as your mayor, I will listen and I will stand up for all of you to keep our city safe, healthy, and livable. Thank you.
Mr. Tibbet?
The mayor's job in Edmonds is a serious job with serious consequences for our city and for all of us who live here. When you go to cast your vote in the next couple of weeks, you'll be voting for a person whom you think demonstrates the kind of leadership that will move our city forward. I'm honored to have the endorsement of our mayor and 4 past mayors, as well as the endorsement of 5 mayors from surrounding cities. They know me and they know how I've worked with others for positive solutions for our region and for Edmonds. They have seen the way that I listen to people, study the facts, and come up with fresh solutions. One of the things that I've heard here tonight is the importance of vision. And I know that the best days for our city lie ahead, and that is going to emerge out of all of us who are in this room, contributing to that vision, contributing to the lifestyle that we want to preserve, and contributing to the ideas that make this a great city to live in. And I am excited for not only for what we have in store, but for the next generation and generations after that. People who work with me know that I come to meetings prepared and ready to contribute with my ideas. They know that I elevate others around me, and I'm not concerned about who gets the credit. I want what's best for our city. As mayor, I will not bring a laundry list of new priorities. I will work with citizens and staff to establish the top priorities and make sure that we work together as a team to do them. As mayor, I promise to always put people ahead of politics. I guarantee residents will have a meaningful voice in the decisions that face us. I will seek good information that provides information for good decisions. I will always be fair and inclusive in all that we do. I will never compromise the integrity of the city or the position of mayor. My name is Neil Tibbet. I'm running to be the next mayor of Edmonds, and I would appreciate your vote in August. Thank you for coming this evening.
Mr. Shipley?
We're at a critical point of the future of our city. We have some serious things to consider over the next 5 years. We have a comprehensive plan update that's going to be coming up in the next couple years. We're going to have Link Light Rail showing up in 2024. We've already discussed how many housing units are going to be added, if not in Edmonds, on the periphery of Edmonds. I will be engaging with the citizens to help create that future. If you want to have a voice in that process, I hope you'll vote for me. I'm Brad Shipley. I'm running for mayor.
Thank you very much to all of you. That does end tonight's debate. I want to thank our audience as well as the Edmonds Center for the Arts for hosting this event. A reminder that the primary ballots are going to be mailed to all voters tomorrow, and the deadline for returning those is Tuesday, August 6th. So thank you, candidates, again for your participation. Good night, everybody.